The Oklahoma Sooners got a big win over the Iowa State Cyclones on Saturday. What did we love? What did we hate? We'll talk about that and so much more on today's episode of Locked On Sooners Live.
You are Locked On Sooners, your daily podcast on the Oklahoma Sooners, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Sooner Nation? Welcome to Locked On Sooners and welcome to our live show on Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more with FanDuel Sportsbook. Right now, new customers can bet $5 and get $200 in bonus bets guaranteed. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon today to get started. I'm John Williams. You can follow me on Twitter at John9Williams. This is my buddy here, Josh Helmer. You can follow him on Twitter at JoshOnRef. You can also hear him Monday through Friday from 9 to noon on 94.7. Sorry, not 94.7. I coached 2 soccer practices tonight and was really sick last night, so I'm way off today. On the KREF Sports app, you can hear Josh and so many great shows on the ref. Josh, what's up, man?
What's going on, man? Great to be with you, my friend. I hope you're feeling better. I know yesterday was a little rough for you, but this is the week, right? I mean, I know we're going to talk about Iowa State and revisit what we liked, what we disliked, but I mean, a night like tonight where, we're live and we're with the people. This is why we grind for 51 weeks out of the year for, yes, that week right there from Cole. I'm too scared to say it aloud. But yes, it's this is what it's all about, man. Let's play a football game. Let's find out how good this OU team is.
Yeah, man, it's going to be a lot of fun this week. Chad says beat Tejas. That's the more PG way of what Cole basically wanted to say. But
yeah, Tuck Fexer.
Yeah, there you go. But it's a great week, man. It's the week that even when my wife and I were living in Ethiopia, it didn't matter what was going on. We were struggling with every ounce of our being to find internet access, good quality internet access, so we could stream the game. One year we listened to it on the radio. I think that was back in the 2013 or 2014 season where we listened to it. In 2013, it was definitely the 2013 season. We listened to it on the radio. I don't think they won that game, which made it really disappointing. But yeah, man, this is the week that everybody gets up for. We're really, really pumped about that. And we're going to definitely talk about OU Texas all week. We got a great guest lined up for what will be Wednesday's show, but we can't wait to talk to him on Tuesday. Right now, tentatively saying Jordan Evans is going to join us on the show. So we're excited to talk to him and just get some of his thoughts on Brent Venables' defense, but also, man, his favorite OU Texas memories as well. You can't have a Sooner on without talking OU Texas. So, Josh, let's start with the 50-20 win, though, over Iowa State. That was a huge, huge win in a game that was tight early on for the first, 21 minutes of game time. At the 9-minute mark, Iowa State tied it up, made it 21 came to within 1 point. It was 21-20, but then the Oklahoma Sooners, man, they really took over from there.
Yeah, and it was a game that defensively got started with that great play, a great series, right? Leading up to the Billy Bowman pick six. And obviously he goes and makes a great play on the football, and Key Lawrence is waving him, come on around the corner. And it's a great play, a great start for OU. And then it obviously combusted and fell apart on Oklahoma with the Key Lawrence coverage bust and then the Billy Bowman coverage bust. I really don't know what happened on either of those two plays outside of bad eyes and overran things, which, obviously as you start looking forward to this week, can't have that. So it didn't start great defensively, even though it started great defensively for Oklahoma. But from that, 9-minute, 6-second mark left in the second quarter, I think it was 259 yards that Oklahoma had given up at that point, and they finished by surrendering 352 or thereabouts, if I have the numbers right. So they really, from that point forward, obviously they pitched a shutout from that point on, John, but you got to love, again, a characteristic about this team, which is defensively, when things go wrong, whether it's on a set of downs, on a series, or on now in this instance, which probably not going to cut it this weekend, but on a sequencing of 4 drives in a row, Oklahoma really, really responded defensively. So yeah, I mean, even though you saw a lot there that wasn't great to see, there was a positive, obviously, in Oklahoma's big time response.
Yeah, so in the first half, Oklahoma allowed 270 yards of total offense. In the second half, they allowed just 82 yards of total offense. It's a very different dynamic. And a lot of it started in that second quarter when the last 6-9 minutes of that quarter for the Oklahoma defense. Completely different ball game. And I think that's the thing that stands out the most right now about this Brent Venables coach team in 2023 is they're showing a different set of resiliency, a different level of resiliency, that they're not just kind of going into a shell whenever a big play happens against them. No, they're rallying, they're rebounding, they're responding in the right way and getting back to doing what they do. And what they do this year is they slow people down. They stop people on defense. And I mean, the rushing yards, that was another thing that was really, Iowa State was running the ball pretty well. I mean, they had 16 carries for 121 yards in the first half. In the second half, now a lot of it, the game changed. They were down by 20 going into the second half, so they had to throw the ball a little bit more, but they only allowed 29 rushing yards in the second half. And a lot of that came late in the fourth quarter when I don't remember who the quarterback was, but that 6'7" dude was just scrambling and doing quarterback power, and they were picking up some yards that way. But before that, through the third quarter, they ran the ball 8 times, no yards. That's the kind of response that you're looking for as a coaching staff. Yeah, you gave up some big plays. You got to correct those. You got to figure out a way to play more consistently without having the coverage bust, without having the bad reads. But you love the way that they responded. And I think having some of that teach tape for going into OU Texas, that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it was one of those things that definitely had to kind of flip the switch. You had to flip the switch defensively, and they did it. And credit to them and the coaching staff for getting that switch flipped. We'll get into more of this. We're going to talk about the things that we loved, some of the things that we hated from the win. We're going to get into OU Texas. We'll talk about your questions, some of the things that you have to say about the game this past weekend, the game coming up this weekend. Share with us some of your favorite memories in the chat. We'd love to hear some of your favorite OU Texas memories down the road as well. But first, we're going to talk to you about some of our friends that sponsor us here on the Locked On Podcast Network.
Well, we're always looking for the game changer, right? And it is time for your game changer of the week, brought to you by Athletic Brewing Company, much like our man Dylan Gabriel. How about that? Athletic Brewing has completely changed the non-alcoholic beer game. They make, wait for it, non-alcoholic beers that actually taste good. And that's an important detail in case you're trying to tailgate with the friends, with the family, and you don't want to feel left out. But guess what? You also don't drink, right? You don't want an alcoholic beer. You want a non-alcoholic beer. Perfectly fine, which, oh, by the way, as I love to sing the praises, John, no hangovers ever, which, my friends, is a beautiful thing. One thing that you got to love about Athletic Brewing Company, they've got all sorts of different flavors to suit your particular palate. They brew over 50 styles of craft non-alcoholic beer, including IPAs, golden, sours, so much more. And oh, by the way, they're constantly innovating, constantly creating. So check out Athletic Brewing Company's non-alcoholic brews at a store near you or buy online at athleticbrewing.com. First-time customers, you can use our code LOCKEDON to get 15% off your first online order. That's code LOCKEDON at checkout, locked on at checkout for 15% off at athleticbrewing.com. Athletic Brewing Company, fit for all times, near beer. Exclusions and conditions apply.
Okay, Josh, so we spent a little bit of time talking about the performance of the defense, some of the things that we didn't really like with those coverage busts. But let's talk about some of the things that we loved from the Oklahoma Sooners win.
Well, okay, if we're talking defense, one thing I think that is true at this point and this stage, and it's going to get tested this week versus Texas. But how about the way that Gentry Williams and Key Lawrence and others, it's not the coverage bust that got, it was the coverage bust, right, that got Oklahoma. It wasn't, for the most part, missed tackling that got Oklahoma, right? I mean, so Gentry Williams is flying downhill. Key Lawrence is flying downhill. It was kind of the eyes in different situations, I think, that got Oklahoma. This is such an advanced tackling team in the open field, it looks like right now, John, as compared to a year ago. And we saw that again this past week versus Iowa State, namely again by guys like Gentry Williams a couple of times flying downhill on those bubble screens. So defensively, that's something I really liked.
Yeah, that was something I really, really liked as well. And again, responding in the right way, just showing a stronger mental toughness that we didn't see from this team last year, and we hadn't seen from them in a long time, where you can shut off the floodwaters. You can batten down the hatches and make everything turn in the way that you expect it to turn. Let's flip to the offensive side. Offensively, man, I love the way that Dylan Gabriel is playing football right now. He's playing with an edge to him, a little bit of a chip on his shoulder. And I don't know if it's that he's hearing, the noise surrounding him, how he's not a good quarterback, how he's not playing well, things like that. Or if he's just coming to this season understanding, hey, this is my last ride in college football and I want to make the most of it. And I'm going to go take everything out there. I'm not going to be waiting for someone to give me something. I'm going and I'm taking what I want. And I love this mentality and this attitude from Dylan Gabriel. Did he have a perfect night? No, he did not, but still completed 67% of his passes, had over 400 total yards of offense and 5 total touchdowns. The dude's playing at an insane level right now. And there's a reason why he's mentioned in some of the kind of Heisman conversations. He might not be up there with Caleb Williams and Michael Penix or Bo Nix, but he's just kind of in that second, high third tier of Heisman contenders right now. It's because he's playing great football.
Well, in this week, if you go play great, all of a sudden you are a contender for that award. You're not going to be, jumping to the front of the line and, ahead of some other names out there, but you're going to be in the conversation, legitimately in the conversation, if he goes and does what he's done this season, which again is play very, very efficient football, value the football. Even the interception this past week, you could look at, and not even in a, hey, let's defend Dylan Gabriel way. You could pretty objectively look at that and say, okay, well, yeah, it's maybe that was Jalil Farouk not running the route. You obviously put a little bit of that on Dylan Gabriel. I think you put a little bit on the wide receiver, just a miscommunication between the two, but it wasn't just a horrible throw-in decision from Dylan Gabriel. So that was positive. Probably got away with another one on the throw that was a little bit behind Drake Stoops, but hey, by and large, he really, is valuing the football. I mean, again, 26 out of 39, 366 yards, 3 touchdowns. What he rushed for another couple of touchdowns. So, I mean, he has 5 touchdowns in the game, John, and he's, for the most part, getting the football out quick enough to not get sacked. He gets sacked once in the game. So just, everything he's doing operationally is, it's light years ahead of where it was a year ago. And he was pretty good a year ago.
Yeah. I'll go on record here and say, I love wide receiver play. I love Jalil Farouk. I think he's a gamer. He rounded that route off. He should have run that a little bit sharper. And that's a 10-yard out. That's pretty clear what he was supposed to do there. And it was supposed to cut underneath that defensive back, and it didn't. Should Gabriel maybe not have thrown it, but it's a timing route, and you expect the receiver to run the right route in the right time, and it should be there. So anyway, I'm just going to say that because people here know my affinity for Jalil Farouk, and I believe he's a big-time player. I will call it like I see it sometimes too. Offensively, I like that they're giving Marcus Major the work, the bulk of the workload. Is he the most efficient running back? No, but he'll definitely get you a big play here and there. He's got juice to him. He's going to create a 10-yard play, a 15-yard play here and there. He's a really good pass catcher. I think that's where he does some of his kind of more underrated work. And he did a good job again on Saturday, catching a couple passes for what was it?
4 for 17.
4 for 17. Thank you. 4 for 17. The other thing I like is that, hey, this week it wasn't Angelo Anthony leading the way at wide receiver. It was Jalil Farouk. It was a good game for him. I mean, yes, that interception was on him. I think he had another drop in the game, but otherwise made a big play, came up with some big time receptions throughout the game. So I like that the wide receiver depth is really becoming, I think George Soya said this on Twitter, but it's probably the best position group on the team. And we saw Nick Anderson catch another touchdown. He's becoming the Chris Carter of college football, where all he does is catch touchdown passes.
Yeah, he's got 5 touchdown receptions in his career. And yeah, you guessed it. I mean, obviously all of those have come this season. 2 grabs, 56 yards, and a score. So he is absolutely Mr. Touchdown right now. And oh, by the way, Jaden Gibson, I mean, arguably the best individual play in the game on the 4th down grab. And I'm too strong. Get off me, fellas. And into the end zone. So those 2 guys, we said if you could get one of the 2 playing at a consistent, impactful level in the offseason, right? We said if you get one of the 2, big-bodied wide receiver that can also move after the catch, but again, gives you a larger target frame, that was going to be important for Oklahoma. Well, now it looks like you got both of those guys playing some pretty good football. Oh, by the way, it coincides with 10 different guys caught passes in this game for Oklahoma, John. And I know that obviously Sawchuk and Major are a couple of the names there, but so 8 different pass catching targets caught the football in this game. Brennan Thompson was involved. You mentioned, shuffling of the deck up top with Jalil Farouk in terms of the leading receiver. So yeah, I mean, there's a bunch of guys that are impacting things for Oklahoma. If you say wide receivers, the best position group on this team, I'm not going to fight you on it. They're really, really good right now.
Yeah, they're playing great ball. I mean, safety might be the other spot where you can make an argument, but then you have those 2 coverage busts. And you're like, maybe they take a step back in the position group power rankings for week 5. But yeah, the wide receiver position, you mentioned Brennan Thompson. It's great to see him back on the field. That just adds another great dynamic to your offense that, I mean, you don't teach speed. You can't teach it. You want to have as much of it on the field as you possibly can. And yeah, like Jimmy Satterfield saying he's faster than fast. When Brent Venables said that in the post game, I just thought to The Longest Yard with Adam Sandler and the guy that's talking about Nelly. And he's like, he's so fast. He makes not fast people look not so fast, or he makes fast people look not so fast, however the line goes. But that's just what I thought. But yeah, Brennan Thompson ran so fast that Dylan Gabriel, I know we talk a lot about Dylan Gabriel underthrows and overthrows and whatnot, but I don't think there was any chance that Dylan Gabriel was going to overthrow or hit him in stride on that one. He was just burning down the field. And honestly, it was probably a good thing that Dylan Gabriel underthrew the ball, because the coverage, double coverage, ran right by the ball. It was very much a Top Gun moment where Brennan Thompson hit the brakes and the guys flew right by him, and he was right there to catch the ball. Just a great play. Just all around offensively, I feel really, really good about what's going on. I think the running game is starting to kind of pick up a little bit. That's a tough Iowa State defense. And yeah, they didn't have an efficient day, but they stuck with their game plan. They ran the ball, even if it wasn't there. And so you're seeing an identity kind of take hold that they're going to throw the ball. They're going to let Dylan Gabriel sling it, and they're going to try to run the football as well.
Yeah, they just got a lot of wide receivers that can go make a tough competitive catch. I mean, we've seen Farouk have a tough catch. There's Brennan Thompson. I mean, look, was he blanketed on the particular play? No, because like you said, the stop sign, he threw it up and on a dime stopped and made a great adjustment to the football. But that in and of itself is not a simple, deceleration to the catch point. I mean, but he makes it look that way. So you've seen that from him. You've seen Nick Anderson and Gibson. I mean, there's a bunch of guys on this team, John, pass catchers that have gone and made some pretty incredible catches. So yeah, I think, one thing, that is sort of a love and hate at the same time, John, this team, to me, I think we learned, they're going to have to throw to set up everything else. Out of this weekend, kind of feel like the run game is, we can say there's some growth here and there, but to me, it's pretty clear that right now this Oklahoma team, again, is going to have to lean on those wide receivers and Dylan Gabriel and some of the short passing game and intermediate stuff to go win this game on Saturday. And that's okay. It's a little unconventional, right, to the typical path to victory in OU Texas. But this offense, I know that sort of, crashing through the wall here, early OU Texas thoughts, but it's going to be the best offense that Texas has seen. So I think that's pretty clear coming out of this week too.
Yeah, it's definitely the best offense that that Texas has seen. There's only one team in the nation right now ranked in the top 5 in points for and points against per game, and that's the Oklahoma Sooners. Texas might be favored in this, but they're going to get quite the test from Oklahoma. We'll start talking about OU Texas after the break.
It's time, ladies and gentlemen, to snap into action this NFL season. And yes, it's time to throw the horns down as well. But it's time to snap into action this NFL season with FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. Right now, new customers get $200 in bonus bets. That's $200 in bonus bets guaranteed when you place a $5 bet. Win or lose $200 in bonus bets. If you've been thinking about joining FanDuel, well, again, there's no better time to get in on the action than right now. We say it all the time, but the app, really so easy to use, wide range of betting options, everything you'd be looking for, spreads, player props, over-unders, you name it. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon. Kick off the NFL season in style. FanDuel, official partner of the NFL.
All right, Josh, early OU Texas thoughts. Most places you look, OU is either a 4.5 to 5 to 6.5 point underdog. And I think that's a fair kind of sentiment right now. You know, the Texas Longhorns came into the season as the preseason favorites for the Big 12. They came in as a, preseason, I think they were top 10 or right on the cusp of a top 10 team and have slowly worked their way up. They got the Alabama win. There's still a lot of buzz behind Texas, and for good reason. I also think that Oklahoma is just in a great place to go in and beat and win this game. We know if you've been an Oklahoma fan for a very long time or for not very long, you know this is a coin flip game. It doesn't matter which team is the favorite, which team is considered the most talented, which team has all the buzz behind them. This game is the legitimate 0-0. Nothing else matters. All that matters is what happens on the field on Saturday in the Cotton Bowl, because you take all the stats, you take all the records, everything flies out the window. I know it's proverbial to say that, but it is true. I mean, you can go back to the Kyler Murray year where it looked like Oklahoma should have ran through the Texas Longhorns, and then they didn't. They lost that game. But this is a team, the Oklahoma Sooners, that are playing really, really good defensive football. The best that they've played probably in a decade, are going to be tested by a really, really good quarterback and a really, really good run game. And then on the other side of the field, Oklahoma's offense is going to be tested by a defense that's only allowing around 12 points per game so far.
I don't get in the business of rooting for Texas to win games leading up to the Red River shootout, but it's high stakes always. But, given what happened a season ago and the fact that everybody comes in with donuts on the records this year, first time since 2011 that each of these two squads come into the OU Texas game unblemished, it adds something this year, right? I mean, everything that this game encompasses, and then you add on top of it the layer of frustration that was last season. It's so important for both programs. And, you hear a little bit of discussion this week about, for both, John, you could lose the game and turn around and win the rest of your games and meet up in the no harm, no foul losing this game. And I would say, get that out of here, right? None of those thoughts right here, right now. I think this is an incredibly important game for Oklahoma, for the psyche, for the momentum of the program. And it's going to be, let's call it what it is. It's going to be a really tough one to win. The things that would concern me if we talk about, things that we didn't like or aren't crazy about from Iowa State and really the season to this point, obviously it begins and ends with Oklahoma. To me, their at times inability and certainly big picture, long-term view here, inconsistency running between the tackles in a game that typically is defined by that. John, I don't think that Oklahoma can't go win the game because of that. I think that they do have to change their approach a little bit. I would say probably, to me, more toward the perimeter, how you need to attack Texas's defense in the run game, use the passing game as the run game too. Oklahoma can't come into this thing, at least initially in my mind, and try and just run right up the gut at Texas. I don't think they're going to be super successful doing that. It doesn't look like.
Yeah, just on the surface, the run game hasn't been super effective running anywhere. I feel like they've been at their best running between the tackles. When they try to get things out wide, it's not really working out for them, but you got to have to mix some things up. You're going to have to try and use some wide zone to get away from Texas's really stout defensive interior. At the same time, I mean, they're doing a pretty good job at stopping the run themselves. They're actually better right now than Oklahoma is based on statistics. They're ranked a little bit higher in run defense. But again, Oklahoma's run game is starting to kind of take hold. They're starting to improve a little bit week by week. But I think this is going to be the week where you're going to have to use a lot of that widescreen game to take a little bit of the pressure off of the interior offensive line. You got to get things out wide. You got to use your Drake Stoops, use Gavin Freeman, use Jaleel Farouk in the widescreen game so that you're making Texas chase from the middle of the field to the perimeter. And then once you've done that a bunch, then you can start hitting them with some dive plays and you've loosened them up a little bit. And then you can even start attacking down the field. Texas will give up some big plays on you. If they're not fully locked in on the back end, they'll be able to, the Oklahoma Sooners will be able to take advantage. Angelo Anthony's having a great year. I think that'll continue. I think the wide receiver production and the wide receiver performances that we've seen up until now, I think that'll continue this week against Texas. The Oklahoma Sooners are rolling offensively. There's no reason to expect that to slow down a whole lot.
Yeah, Oklahoma's going to have to be really good on early downs in this game, both offensively and defensively. I think that's one of the biggest keys offensively, again, is to be able to, alleviate a little bit of that pressure on the passing game by whether it's dink and dunk a little bit in the passing game or, just establishing the run somewhat. You don't have to get 6-7 yards a pop. Obviously, it'd be gigantic if you could in this game. History tells us that, but just don't operate 2nd and 10. Don't operate 3rd and 9 a lot against this Texas defense. Is going to be tough, I think, even for Dillon Gabriel, who's playing his best football with a bunch of weapons that Oklahoma should feel very confident about. The other key for me, John, is we haven't really seen a lot of it successfully yet, but Oklahoma is going to have to generate some pressure 4 down. It is what it is. Most of the pressure that Oklahoma's generated is, and they've been successful, and I expect them to be successful to a degree and maybe to a large degree come Saturday again by bringing Stutzman, by bringing Gentry Williams or Key Lawrence, or you name it, which again, we saw Oklahoma very successful with versus Iowa State. That's just a dangerous game to have to live by and die by versus right now the best quarterback that you will have faced this season. So if they can get a little bit of pressure from their 4 down without bringing the heat would really help Oklahoma a lot in this game. And that's something, John, that frankly, we haven't seen enough of.
No, it's true. They haven't been good enough generating pressure with 3 or 4 man alignments, but they've been getting home with the blitz a little bit better than what they did last year. And so I think that's an improvement. It's going to be a work in progress. When you're a team that wants to stop the run and your defensive ends are of the 280, 290 variety, you may not have as much juice off the edge than if you were rolling with R. Mason Thomas and Adepoju Adebare off the edge in on early downs. R. Mason Thomas kind of got back into the swing of things last week. We're seeing PJ get more and more opportunities and playing time. I think as those two kind of get more and more acclimated with the game, R. Mason kind of coming back, getting a bigger role, PJ getting more and more snaps, then you'll start to see a little bit better 4-man pass rushes because those guys can just get off the edge really quickly and win their one-on-one battles pretty quickly. They're not requiring, a lot of help to win those pass rush snaps. So I think there's time for that to develop, but you really need to see it kind of take a step forward this week. And I don't know if it means giving R. Mason more snaps or PJ more snaps, but you're right, Josh. They got to be able to figure out a way to create pressure with just 4 so that they can cover these great Texas wide receivers, at least the depth of wide receiver talent that Oklahoma or that Texas has. I think Oklahoma's coverage is going to be better suited for the challenge, but you still are going to be better set if you do rush the passer with just 4 and are able to generate some pressure.
How much do you buy into psyche of the game going in the sense that, we all know it, right? We know the score from last year, and there were some extenuating circumstances, obviously, with Dillon Gabriel. But for everybody else that was a part of it, that was demoralizing a season ago. And so in one hand, it's incredibly motivating, right? That Oklahoma comes into this game. They've got the chip on their shoulder. Texas, it's OU Texas. Okay. So I don't expect Texas to come in like they've won a national championship. They understand, from their end, what the game means, right? But they did go on the road and they beat Alabama. So, a little fat and happy there, chip on the shoulder for Oklahoma. Sure. I can see that in one hand. The other part that I would worry about, John, and you tell me how much you buy into this, the psyche of a slow start in this game again for Oklahoma. You could say it every single week. I get it. Turnovers, win first down, right? There's a lot of cliches in football. Start fast. But in this game, given what happened a year ago, how important is it?
I think it's huge. And I'll get into more of that here in a second, because there's so much to dive into what everybody's thinking going into this game. The guys that were a part of the game last year, Dylan Gabriel, who wasn't able to play in the game, and we'll do that after the break. But first, you got to go check out Gametime, download the app wherever you get your apps, whether it's the Apple Store, Google Play Store. You got to go get Gametime. It's the best place to get last-minute tickets for whatever you're looking for. Football games, baseball, concert tickets, theater, whatever it is you're looking for, Gametime's got you covered. My favorite feature on the app is that you can see exactly what you're going to be looking at from the seat that you'll be sitting in on the Gametime app. You can use our promo code LOCKEDONCollege and you can get $20 off your first purchase. There's going to be great seats available for Oklahoma's game against UCF here in a few weeks, as well as West Virginia and TCU on that Black Friday affair. So go check it out. Gametime. Wherever you get your apps, use promo code LOCKEDONCollege to get $20 off your first purchase. Gametime, last minute tickets, lowest price guaranteed with the Gametime app. So the psyche of this game, I think there's so many different ways to go with this, but let's just start with Oklahoma and the guys that are returning. The Danny Stutzmans, the Key Lawrence, Woody Washingtons, especially those guys on defense. I think they're going to come into this feeling a lot more confident than they did a year ago. A year ago, they were coming off of the games against Kansas State and TCU, where the defense just got the doors blown off of them. I mean, Kansas State, Adrian Martinez looked like a functional quarterback for the first time in his college career against Oklahoma. And then against TCU, Max Duggan kind of lit the world on fire, both through the air and on the ground. He looked all of a sudden like Michael Vick running, out there in wide open spaces. So I think coming into this game, this defense is going to have so much more confidence, having only allowed 10.5 points per game through the first 5 games of the season, as opposed to last year where they gave up 40 plus points in the 2 previous games. So then you go into a matchup like OU Texas, where you don't have your starting quarterback, you're not getting anything going offensively in the first half, and the defense is supposed to go out there and make stops. It's a really, really tough ask of a defense that was already struggling, but they're a much better defense than what they were a year ago, and they're going to have so much more confidence going into it this year. I also just think because they're a better defense, they'll play more confidently. So that's kind of where I start with it, is the defense is better. So this team has a better shot at making a significant statement in this game.
Well, you also aren't beat as soon as you get off the bus this year, which that's something that you're not going to hear anybody from Oklahoma say, but you've been on a team before in your life, if you've played any sort of athletic this or that, where as soon as things start going wrong, you knew before the game started you weren't probably going to win that game. Even worse, when it's a program that you are sort of defined by whether or not you win or lose against. So Oklahoma a year ago, they knew that they didn't have a chance in the game, John. The defensive players, based on what was probably going to happen offensively. You're always hopeful and you're going to try to put your best foot forward. So I wonder if when we talk psyche, there's a little bit of throw that whole thing away and you really don't think about it. Like we talk about in sports, just flush it and move on. I wonder if that's easier for Oklahoma to do because they know that they didn't really have a full deck of cards last season anyways in the game. But, for me, I mean, defensively, obviously you got gashed a season ago in this game. So if things early start spiraling on you, that could be potentially concerning for the psyche of it. So I just think that that's an interesting angle to the game. I do think it's important that Oklahoma comes into this thing. They clearly, again, are in a much, much better position offensively. That is obvious. Running game concerns, whatever you want to throw at it, offensive line concerns, all of that aside, Oklahoma's in a position offensively to go win this game with the personnel that they have and the advancements they've made defensively. So, but they got to start fast, I think. Based on the way last year played out, you start letting those negative thoughts roll in. Texas just kind of steamrolls off the momentum from a season ago. They're feeling good about themselves coming into this game. Not that Oklahoma's not, John, but they've got the chip on their side. They've got the advantage, not the chip on the shoulder, so to speak, but they've got the momentum in the series based on last year.
Yeah, I know what you're saying. They've got the heavy chip stack. If you're talking poker terms, they've got the big bag on their end of the table, and they're going to try and muscle Oklahoma. But it's just a totally different game. I think you're absolutely right. You just completely flush what happened a year ago. We've talked about it for the last year. That was an aberration game. That's not indicative of an OU Texas football game. That's not indicative of what Oklahoma football is going to be about as it builds. And that's what we're seeing, is that this Oklahoma team is not even close to a reflection of what that was in the Cotton Bowl last year. I mean, that was not an Oklahoma football team. And whether they, they had the OU on the side of their helmet, and there's a lot of guys coming back from that game. But you mentioned it, man. You knew that they were beat when you started seeing Braden Willis running the Wildcat, and that was the only offense that they could generate. And that first drive offensively, they're having to go for it on several fourth down attempts and, fake field goals and things like that. And they still can't come away with points. You're like, man, we just threw the whole bag at them and couldn't get a touchdown. And here we are. And yeah, the defense got us. I think the defense got us stopped like a 3-and-out on the first drive. And you're like, okay, maybe, but it didn't last very long. And so I think the most important thing in this psychologically is just not getting too high or too low. You can go out there and you can have a great, first series, both on offense and defense, and you can make a statement. You can, get a 3-and-out, or you can march down the field and get a touchdown. But you got to stay in that same zone. You got to stay locked in. You can't get too high. You can't get too low, because as we saw, they had a 3-and-out on the first drive, and then Texas just steamrolled them the rest of the way. And it probably could have been a lot worse, if they wanted it to be a lot worse. But I think also knowing going into this game that you're going to have two very capable quarterbacks at your disposal makes you feel so much more comfortable with what the offense is going to be capable of. But especially with the way that Dylan Gabriel is playing football, I think a lot of us thought, okay, if Dylan Gabriel is available for that game last year, it's a totally different ball game. But going into this one, Dylan Gabriel is probably playing the best football of his life. And that's a great thing for Oklahoma. It's a great sign for them, and it gives them a great chance to come out winning this one.
Oklahoma has the better quarterback in this game going in. What do you think?
Yes, I think so. Now, he's not going to be the more highly touted quarterback. NFL draft analysts aren't going to choose Dylan Gabriel over Quinn Ewers because of the measurables and the arm strength and the size and all that stuff. But of the two, I think Dylan Gabriel's playing better football, and to me, he's the most important factor in this game. If we're talking X factors, the way Dylan Gabriel performs in this game is going to determine whether or not Oklahoma wins this game. I think Texas can get by without Quinn Ewers having a great game. I don't think Oklahoma can get by unless Dylan Gabriel has a great game.
Jatavian Sanders is obviously playing in the game, right? We're not even going to hook, line, and sinker on that thing.
I'm not biting. Nah, you got to go in there preparing for him to play, and you got to make sure you're ready to go. And this is going to be a big Deshaun McCullough game. Like that's going to be a very key matchup in this one. Who's the dude that's going to shut him down? You hope it's your cheetah. Deshaun McCullough's got the size and the length to make things really, really difficult for JT. But does he have the coverage skills, the athletic? We know he's got the athleticism, but does he have the coverage skills to keep up with him out in space? That'll be the big question.
Well, and that's probably, I think, NFL guy on NFL guy. Now, Sanders is, further down the road, obviously, than McCullough is right now, and it's still year one at that position, and he wasn't supposed to be the starter, according to the way the year started, right, with Justin Harrington having won the job of being lost for the season. And yet, I think, all of us feel like and have seen those flashes that McCullough has the potential to be a great defensive player for Oklahoma. And you know what? for everybody, right? I mean, this is a chance for Peyton Bowen, who's already done some incredible things, and he blocks a punt a week ago. And I'm sorry, Trace Ford, oh so close, but I mean, this is where legends are made, right? So Danny Stutzman, I think, is the best defensive player for Oklahoma since what, Gerald McCoy? I mean, you throw whichever name you want to throw at me. He's on that trajectory. I don't think there's any doubt, especially if he plays great and OU wins this game, that he's going to be in the mix and probably win the Butkus Award if he's great come Saturday. But this is where the legend is made for Stutzman, for Bowen, for all these guys defensively, to rewrite the chapter that was a total wrong from a season ago, and to tell the nation and to tell the world, we're back to playing championship football, championship defense at the University of Oklahoma. Let's see it, baby, because this is it. Texas has got NFL talent offensively especially. We feel good about that at the two tackle positions and obviously the skill guys. So guess what? Let's put it good on good, and let's show that Oklahoma is, in fact, vastly improved defensively.
And I think they are. But we'll see. We got more to say about OU Texas. We got more to say about your questions, your comments. If you got a question, drop it in there in the chat. We'll try to find it and respond to it. We'll also respond to some of your comments as well. Talk through some of the other kind of big question marks for OU as they go into this game. We'll do that after the break. Second summer has hit us. And if you're like me, you're outside like all the time, whether it's my 3-year-old son that wants to be out at noon on the weekday after he gets out of preschool, or I'm out at the soccer fields with my kids. It's still hot out there. It's 90 degrees at 5:30, 6 o'clock. And I'm just so glad that I've got my bird dogs to put on, because not only do they make me look good, but they keep me cool and comfortable and make me feel good as well. I'm not sweating and I'm not suffering through some of these, heavy weighted, cotton shorts that are keeping all the air out of your body and keeping all the hot inside your body. No, the bird dogs keep you cool, they keep you comfortable, and they keep you looking good as well. So go to birddogs.com, check out, use our promo code Locked On College, and you can get a free Yeti style tumbler, a free water bottle with each new purchase. Man, they're so comfortable. They look so good. You will not want to take your bird dogs off. We promise you. So what, Josh, is the path to victory for the Oklahoma Sooners?
I think it's a very interesting question, because I don't have a strong opinion yet outside of Oklahoma has to be really good defensively, which is generic and simplistic, but Oklahoma needs to be the improved defense that we've seen, right? You got to go create some takeaways. McCullough, as we discussed, needs to do a good job on Sanders, who I absolutely will be shocked if he doesn't play. Corners, safeties. 2 years ago, Xavier Worthy takes the first catch to the house, catches it, and boom, he's gone, right? Those types of plays where we've seen Gentry Williams and company fly downhill and bottle somebody up immediately, that's got to carry over to the Cotton Bowl. We've got to see that for Oklahoma. So that would be number one for me. Offensively, outside of, again, just a generic Dylan Gabriel plays good and doesn't get sped up, I'm trying to figure out what the recipe is mentally for myself, because right now I don't know that it's run the football. I just don't feel confident that that is a realistic right now path to victory for Oklahoma. Would love if it is, but right now, based on what we've seen, John, I don't think that it is. So what say you? What is the path to victory for Oklahoma?
Well, I'll start here with what Alec F1 says over in the YouTube chat. No turnovers. You cannot afford any turnovers. And he might even be going further as to say, like, no mistakes, as in no penalties, no miscommunications. It's going to be a loud environment. You can't afford any of that stuff in this game, in a game that probably will end up tight. If Vegas has it right, it will be a 1-score game. And so you cannot afford any mistakes. You got to play clean, sound football, both offensively and defensively. And I think they will. I mean, I think, the interception by Gabriel this past week, you can chalk it up. We talked about it earlier. You can chalk it up as just a poorly run route. But if Dylan Gabriel goes out there and has a poor read and makes a poor throw and gets picked off, I mean, that can hurt you in this game where every single possession counts. You got to be able to take care of the football, and you cannot kill a drive with a false start. or with a holding call. There's no quicker way to kill a drive than having a penalty. The stats bear that out, that if you have a negative play at any point in the drive, your chances of scoring go way, way down. And this team has often at times hurt themselves with penalties over the last year. And we've seen it this year as well. So if they can play a cleaner game, not get rattled by the crowd noise, because it will be loud in there. The Texas fans are going to be bringing it when Oklahoma has the ball. And I expect Oklahoma fans to be bringing it when Texas has the ball. But you've got to stay clean. You got to keep everything focused. You cannot have a false start. You cannot have a bad holding call. You got to play ahead of the chains. And I think that really is, I know it's a very generic thing to say, but it's huge. And I do think that the way forward in this game is through the air. Yes, you want to be able to run the football. You want to be able to control the clock. You want to be able to keep your defense fresh. But I think Dylan Gabriel having the ball in his hands is your best chance at victory, because he's playing so well, and it accesses and utilizes the best position group you have on your roster, which is your wide receiver group. I don't mind throwing it 40, 50 times a game, because we have a good depth of wide receivers that can take advantage and make plays both in the air with Jaden Gibson, Nick Anderson, or after the catch, or down the field. I mean, we've got a great diverse set of wide receivers that can make plays all over the field. So we got to utilize them. And so get the ball out there. Let Dylan Gabriel sling it a little bit. Yeah, run the ball. You're going to have to do that to keep them from just straight up pass rushing Dylan Gabriel every single time he drops back. But at the same time, man, let me see Dylan Gabriel throw it 40 times in this game and let him utilize that great group of wide receivers.
There's good penalties and there's bad penalties, right? I mean, there can be a pass interference that winds up as a good penalty, or the opposite, right? And there could be a good hold, you name it, right? But generally speaking, obviously you'd like to be on the lighter end instead of the heavier end. And if you're chalking that up as one of the big keys, I'm not going to argue with you or anybody else that feels that way. I will tell you, Oklahoma's 94th nationally, averaging 7 penalties per game. Texas is tied 12th, just 4.2. So you create your own penalties, though, right? I mean, you create a penalty for your opponent by generating a pressure or winning a one-on-one up front. And maybe Texas hasn't seen a whole lot of that outside of what it's seen beyond Alabama, right? So, but the numbers are not encouraging on that front for Oklahoma going into this thing. Not that obviously this game is its own game and its own entity. That's just where the numbers are at going in.
Yeah, I love what folks are saying over here in the comments section. Cole says we need to blitz every play, like remember the Titans. And Carmelo follows that up with blitz all day. You make sure they remember forever the day they played the Sooners. Sorry, it's my best Coach Yost impersonation there. But yeah, I would love to see them just get after Quinn Ewers. As much as we talk about Dylan Gabriel and maybe how he struggles a little bit when the environment is a high pressure environment. I just don't know if Quinn Ewers played great against Alabama. I just don't know if that's who Quinn Ewers is, or if he's kind of the inconsistent quarterback that we've seen for most of his career at Texas. So I'd like to put some pressure on him. Send Jaren Kanak, send Danny Stutzman, send, Dasan McCullough, blitz these guys, make him beat you. Don't just expect that, he's going to be able to find guys in coverage. Don't sit back in zone all day. Play some press man, put your corners out on the island and see if you can win some of those matchups. Now, obviously you got to adjust if things don't work out, but man, I like Oklahoma's blitz packages right now. And I think they're doing a really good job. He's not as athletic as Rocco Becht or as Emory Jones or as the guy we saw against Tulsa. I'm forgetting his name. Pardon me. If you get Quinn Ewers off his spot, it's going to make him a less accurate quarterback, and it's going to give you an opportunity to create some turnovers in this game. So pressure him, send it 5-6 guys, make him make quick decisions, and then tackle. And that's been a thing that's been really, really good for the Sooners this year is their tackling. And so I feel good about, hey, blitz and tackle. If he, drops it off underneath, then you just go tackle.
Well, he's obviously got one win in this series to his credit. And typically the experienced quarterback a lot of times in this game does matter. Mm-hmm. But one thing I can say on Oklahoma's front in that regard is, again, he's played in one laugher of a game in the Cotton Bowl. So he didn't have to go earn one late. So that part, hypothetically, if you get into that scenario both ways, it will be a new experience for both Dillon Gabriel and for Quinn Ewers. So some of the experience factor maybe is mitigated a little bit. John, if I can talk us into a little glass half full right there. Oklahoma, by the way, if you're talking pressures on the opposing quarterback, they have generated 84 via Pro Football Focus quarterback hurries so far this season. So averaged out, that's 17 a game, which you're going to need every bit of that, right, to go win this game on Saturday.
A few questions here, Josh, before we get out of here on this edition of Locked On Sooners Live. Our Mutt 1917, he asks, being pessimistic, what's more demoralizing? And this is his worst case scenario, failing on your first drive or letting the other team score first. I'm guessing you have to punt or they score. What's more demoralizing?
Probably letting them score, because you've obviously got the chance to come right back and score yourself, but just given the way this game played out last year, I think it's important that Oklahoma gets off to a good defensive start. When again, you could totally reverse psychology this thing here with me, John, and say, well, yeah, but your offense stunk in this game a year ago. But I just think, Oklahoma needs to establish that it's going to be tough for Texas to score on them in this game, right? That, again, to me is the big path to victory is the defense has to be improved. So I would say more demoralizing to give up the opening score to Texas. What do you think?
Yeah, I think so too. If you punt the ball on your first drive, that's not the end of the world, but say they march right down the field, 5 plays, 75 yards and score a touchdown, that'd be pretty rough. And also just kind of depends, say it's like a big penalty that sets them up with good field position, or there's a big special teams return and then they only have to drive 50 yards or whatever, then I might feel a little bit differently. But yeah, if they go on a nice, 75-yard drive to open the scoring, that would feel pretty rough, and I'd probably start getting a little bit nervous, but I also believe in this team's ability to bounce back defensively. So yeah, that's kind of where I sit on that one. Two kind of in tandem questions here. Mike asks, what's wrong with Stogner? Josh, do you have any? We don't really know, but it just doesn't look quite right for Austin Stogner just yet.
Though he did have the early grab right this past week, so that was a nice little route. And
one catch, 18 yards.
Yeah, he had that 18-yarder early, and then there was really nothing else. I do think that Dillon Gabriel has missed him, and not even just, hey, Dillon Gabriel's missed him, but at times Dillon Gabriel has missed him, or the offense has directed things other ways when Stogner has in fact been open. I'm more concerned about the inability in the run blocking game is concerning. At times the way that Oklahoma keeps wanting to do that, and it's pretty obvious at times that Stogner's not fully capable of doing that. And obviously, I would agree if somebody said, hey, at times it looks like he's a step slower than he has been.
Yeah, it's hard to watch sometimes when you see him out on the perimeter and he just absolutely misses a block. You're like, man, where's Stog at? But hopefully this is the week where we see him have that Oklahoma breakout game that we've been waiting on, where he goes for 8 and 110 and a touchdown or something like that.
So if you know right now today that Blake Smith is the more physical, better blocker of the two, you got to play him this week, right? Because of what you've got going on at wide receiver. Everybody wants a nice little safety valve and this and that over the middle, but you got to play to your strengths, I would think, right?
Yeah, I'd be fine with that. And, if that means you play Blake Smith, keep him in the blocking formation and use your running back as the receiver, I'm fine with that. Mix it up, play to your strengths, play to what's going to get you the ball down the field. And that brings us to the second part of this question. That comes from Jet. 10 personnel? And if you don't know what 10 personnel means, that's 1 running back, 0 tight ends, 4 wide receivers, hence the 1 running back, 0 tight ends. I'm all for 10 personnel. Give me as much 10 personnel as you want to throw out there, because of the way that Nick Anderson is playing. He got 45 snaps this past week, which was 4th amongst the wide receivers, but you're steadily seeing that snap count increasing, and he's becoming a significant part of the offense, not just a garbage time member of the offense. No, he's getting snaps early in the game, and he's taking advantage of them, and he's making them play him more. And so, yeah, give me as much give me as much of the wide receiver group as you want to put out there. Now, I don't want to see them run as much empty as they've been running. The way that they were running empty backfield against Iowa State towards the end of that second quarter, I was not a big fan of that. But yeah, if you want to run 10 personnel and use Nick Anderson as your de facto tight ends, or put Jalil Farouk in the slot as your kind of tight end, then I'm game. Let's do it, man.
Yeah, empty, you're throwing the ball or you're bringing a wide receiver around on a jet sweep is the way you're running it. Though Dylan Gabriel, right? I mean, they clearly were effective using him in the quarterback run game, so that would be a possibility there. But I would say, to me, it's nice to have the running back there with you. And then, 10 personnel, because guess what? Right now, Oklahoma puts its best foot forward, John, when they have four wide receivers on the field. Tight ends, you're just going to be more effective without them right now offensively if you're Oklahoma. It looks like.
Yeah, I think so too. Another really good question here is, who will get the most touches at wide receiver?
I think Antrell Anthony and Farouk are going to be getting the lion's share. I don't know that I'm going to pick between necessarily the two. I think it just kind of depends on maybe how the game shakes out or how coverages play out. But I think those two guys, John, are going to be heavily, heavily featured. And you know what? Look, I think Oklahoma's in a situation where it's not going to shock me if Nick Anderson or Gibson or Freeman or Stoops or even Brennan Thompson wind up as your leading guy. But percentage chance, I would say most likely Andrell Anthony or Jalil Farouk.
And then Carmelo asks, I cannot read tonight. I apologize, everybody.
Carmelo.
Yeah. Carmelo, not
no,
Carmelo.
I sorry.
Caramello.
Bad joke. Continue on.
Sorry. Who should be RB1? I think Walker is best overall. Dude is a bowling ball and he can pass block. What do you think?
I've been saying for a little while that, to me, Tommy Walker looks like he's the most effective for Oklahoma. And I think even again, in a game where Marcus Major got the bulk of the work, I think I still wonder if Tommy Walker would have been more productive. So I don't know what to make out of the running backs. I'm not convinced that Marcus Major is the guy. I'm not convinced that he's not the guy. I'm not convinced that Tawi is the guy. I'm not convinced that he's not the guy. I'm not convinced that Gavin Sawchuk's story is done. I'm hopeful that Javante Barnes will in fact be healthy at some point this season. I got no clue what's going on at running back still.
Yeah, big shrugs from me over here. I think, Dominic responded, he had kind of a similar question, probably answering Marcus Major. That's the trend right now, right? Marcus Major has led the Sooners in carries each of the last 2 weeks, but you can't discount what Tommy Walker did against SMU. He was arguably your best player on the field that day, ran for over 100 yards. And yeah, he runs tough, he runs physical. And this is a game where you kind of want to establish a little bit of physicality and a little bit of toughness. So I'd kind of be inclined to see a little bit more Tommy Walker in this one and set the tone, set a physical tone early. Let Tommy Walker kind of impose his will a little bit. Dominic also asks, will BV get his way and start PJ? I mean, he's the head coach. If he wants to start PJ, he'd start PJ, right?
He would, but what do you think? You think PJ is going to start? I say no.
Not yet. No, I think because they want to stop the run first and foremost, I think it's still going to be the Ethan Downs, Rondo Bothroyd show. And I don't think those guys are playing bad. And I think you've got a bright future with Adepoju Adebaware. But I think because they want to stop the run, they want to make sure that is keyed in and emphasized. It's Ethan Downs, Rondo Bothroyd starting at defensive end. And then you're probably going to still see a lot of Trace Ford. Let me just look at the defense. Yeah. Marcus Stripling, he's really been turning it on in recent weeks.
I would tell you too, just real quick, John, that as many good things as PJ Adebaware has done, the big Sama run early, I think it was early second quarter, maybe late first, it was PJ Adebaware and Jacob Lacey that got absolutely caved in on that side of the line. Now, I know he did a bunch of other really nice things too versus Iowa State and has in other games too, but I just think that Oklahoma probably has also seen that the run game against these tackles from Texas, are they a little bit concerned how effective he's going to be there? Are there guys that maybe there's not as much upside in the pass rush department, John, but they're a little bit more well-rounded at this point? That's what would lean me away, because I did see that snap versus Iowa State where, again, boom, he just gets absolutely caved in.
Just randomly, and probably because the game was out of reach for basically 2/3 of the game, PJ got more snaps of anybody at defensive end on Saturday. That's good experience for him. But still, to me, it's Ethan Downs, it's Rondo Bothroyd. Those are the guys that are going to be starting. More Trace Ford. You're going to see more and more Adepoju Adebawore. And I think, especially in pass rushing situations, like throw him out there in situations where he's going to have a chance to thrive. Don't make him a 3-down defensive end just yet. Use him situationally and let him continue to grow. I think, Cole mentions it here. 1 more year of strength and conditioning. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. True freshmen coming in and being impactful players, like that's a bonus. You can't always expect that that's going to be the case. What him and Peyton Bowen are doing right now as true freshmen is awesome. But again, that's like the icing on the cake. You can't expect that that's going to happen every single year. The fact that you're getting anything out of these guys this early in their careers is phenomenal. So,
and I fully suspect we're going to see some PJ, but we're not going to see 50 snaps.
No. I totally agree with you. Yeah, you'll see him, especially when it's 3rd and long, or if it's like a 2nd and 12 or something like that. You're going to see him out there on the field because they want to get his athleticism and his speed out there, and that's a great thing for him. Get him in a situation where all he's got to do is beat the guy in front of him and go get the quarterback. He's not having to worry about setting the edge and rushing the passer at the same time. And that's why I think you're right on. Guys like Ethan Downs and Rondo Bothroyd, they've just got more experience, and they're, again, a little bit more well-rounded at this point in their careers. Not saying that they have a higher ceiling or necessarily are better, but they can do everything in a really, really good manner so that you're not losing anything in the run defense department. So I'm cool with that. Keep building PJ, give him opportunities to be confident. That's all right with me.
And he might still yet in, 15, 20 snaps, whatever it may be, come Saturday, he might wind up being the hero with 1 strip sack fumble or 1 big time sack. I mean, that's totally a possibility. I just, again, I'm not expecting him to get the Lions share the bulk of the work out there.
Yeah, man, what a great show. Again, thank you all so much for being a part of Locked On Sooners Live. Thank you. We're tuned in here every Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time. And next Monday, it's going to be a banger. No matter how this goes this Saturday against Texas, we'll try to have another live show after that game. My wife and family and we got to do a little bit of traveling that day as well. So we'll see how this all comes to be. It might be a Saturday evening live show, but we'll keep you tuned in on what's going to happen so that we can react to OU Texas with you on Saturday. But again, we're back here Monday night, 9 p.m. Central Time next week for the live show, and here all week long to get you ready for OU Texas. Throw them horns down wherever you go, but make sure you subscribe to Locked On Sooners wherever you get your podcasts. We're free and available on every podcast platform and on YouTube. Hit that notification bell to let you know when new episodes drop. Follow Josh on Twitter at JoshOnRef. Follow myself at John9Williams. The show is at Locked On Sooners. But until next time, he's Josh. I'm John. Boomer Sooner.